Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I draw everyone's attention to page 3 within the agenda, which sets out details regarding fire safety instructions? I can't get much clear. Is that? Not working. Can't hear. Sorry about that. We'll start again. Can you not hear? I'm really close to it. No? Yeah, but they can't. The people. Please. Careful. I don't know. Sorry? Start again, thank you. Chair, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I draw everyone's attention to page 3 within the agenda, which sets out details regarding fire safety instructions and the webcasting arrangements. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please leave the building via the nearest exit and make your way to the assembly point located in the market car park, adjacent to the Civic Suite building. Please do not return to the building unless given permission by council staff. Due to a technical issue, those watching the live feed from home may only be able to hear the discussions taking place during this meeting. We apologise for any inconvenience this may cause. Members, before we start, I would like to nominate Councillor Marriott to take Vice Chair, as the Vice Chairman has given his apologies. Members, could I see a vote in favour, please? Seconder, sorry. Second. Those in favour, please. Those against? Those abstaining? Thank you very much. That's carried. Thank you, Angela. Angelina. Oh, thank you, members. Apologies for absence and substitute members. There are, as far as I'm aware, no substitute members, but we do have apologies from Councillor Wilson, Councillor Young-Wilson, Councillor Capon, but Councillor Capon's here, isn't he? No. No? I thought he was, sorry. Councillor Capon, Councillor Squires-Coleman. Members, minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of January. Are these minutes agreed? Unfortunately, I wasn't there, so I'm going to have to take your word for it. Are you all happy to receive those? Thank you, members. Pardon? To receive declarations of interest. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a disclosable pecuniary interest to disclose relating to item 7. Inasmuch as my wife runs a dog boarding business, which is licensed by Rochford District Council, and I've been advised by the monitoring officer that I need to leave the chamber for that item.
Public questions on notice? There are none.
Chair, I wish to raise a point of order under procedure rules. So I believe there is a breach of the council's procedure rules because an item that was formally referred from full council on 22nd of July by a resolved motion is not included on this evening's agenda, despite that referral. Under Rule 5, Notice of and Summons to Meetings, the summons must specify the business to be transacted, and this item is not listed. Furthermore, I do not believe it qualifies as urgent business, as no certification from the Chair nor reasons in the summons to justify urgency. I ask for the Chair's ruling on whether the omission is a procedural breach and how we should address it to ensure the Council's decision is respected.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. I understand. I believe this is Ask Angela. I believe that it is actually in which item? I'm not sure. The first item it is in that. First item. Yes.
Apologies if it is, I hadn't seen it in there. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you. I shall ask the officer to give this report now, if I may. Oh. Sorry, I'll read this out. The Licensing Act 2003 requires local councils to review their statement of licensing policy every 5 years. A revised policy has been produced for consideration of this committee in preparation for the consultation. The report also suggests the new policy promotes the Ask Angela scheme. Thank you. So if I could ask, is it Paul or Brad doing this?
No, I can cover this, Chair. I think just to add to what you've said, obviously the Licensing Act policy requires to be reviewed every 5 years. It's due for renewal for publication early next year. I think if you look at the report, we consider the motion that was submitted at Council on the 22nd of July in relation to Ask for Angela and the suggestion in order to be able to comply with sort of the legalities around conditions, etc., that are attached to the licence, is that the policy be amended to sort of include, I think it's at 1.5 of the report. There's two additional mentions there. One of the Ask for Angela scheme, and the other one is in relation to sort of drink spiking. As it does say within the report that it wouldn't be lawful to require every premises to have it as a condition of the licence as a matter of fact. However, depending on the style of the premises, it would be for each premises to determine whether they ought to have it as part of their operating schedule. And the policy insertion at 1.5 of the report suggests, what they need to consider in relation to that.
Thank you. Councillor Newport.
Thank you, Chair. So the motion that was put forward at full council was regarding the Ask for Angela specifically around taxis, not licensed premises, because most of the bars and the licensed premises within the district all know and do the Ask for Angela. It was actually around taxi licensing.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. As far as I'm aware, I don't recall that, but perhaps I'll go back to Paul and perhaps he can enlighten us.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I've not been made aware that was the fact. My understanding of it, what's been communicated through to us, is that the motion related to licensed premises. The Ask the Angela scheme is a scheme that is predominantly operated by licensed premises. It involves people, going into the bar, asking for Angela behind the bar because they're in a situation they feel uncomfortable with. I'm not sure how the Ask for Angela scheme in its current form would work in a licensed vehicle because that person is in the licensed vehicle unless they're getting into that licensed vehicle with somebody that they're uncomfortable with doing so. But it would be very difficult for the driver to have a conversation with that individual to see the reasons why they're asking for Angela, because obviously the other person potentially would be in that vehicle with them at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Newport.
Thank you for allowing me to come back, Chair. So I appreciate what you've said, Mr. Adams, and I also appreciate that most taxi drivers do some sort of safeguarding and vulnerability training. However, I have had one of the owners of a taxi company contact me following that meeting at full council, asking for support from the district council in educating the Ask for Angela scheme, which I had sent on all the information that I have had, and that's why I was keen to get this, as were everyone that, it was voted through, on the licensing. And I appreciate what you're saying about you can't stipulate it as a legal requirement, the same as you can't in alcohol licensed premises. But is there some sort of plan and programme and information we can get out to taxi licensing or taxi drivers, the providers, with regards to just expanding their knowledge about the safeguarding and violence against women and girls? It is easy to get into a taxi and say, oh, is Angela working tonight? I'm sure most taxi drivers would know that if it's on the Ask for Angela scheme and they've had the training, if you understand what I'm saying. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Newport. I totally agree, and it's something that I'm pretty certain taxi drivers are made aware in their safeguarding training that this issue could arise. Any other questions, please, from any councillors? Councillor Angelina Marriott, please.
Chairman, with regard to what Councillor Newport is saying, on page 113, there is a section. On page 113, there is a section saying safeguarding and child sexual exploitation awareness training. Maybe there could be some reference of knowledge of Ask for Angela or something could be included in that training, perhaps. The training that's referred to on here.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Marriott. Paul, is there anything that we can put in for this? Thank you.
Yeah, currently the safeguarding and child sexual exploitation awareness training is provided by an external training provider. These schemes are sort of in association with a number of the charities like ROSPA and other such organisations. I don't think it's been a while since I've been on the training course. I don't think they specifically mention the Ask for Angela scheme. And as I say, I think the Ask for Angela scheme is predominantly pushed around the licensed trade. However, they do talk about safeguarding themselves and safeguarding vulnerable adults that are travelling in their vehicle. That would include intoxicated people, women and young girls that are travelling on their own late at night. So they do receive an awareness training around that as part of this. Although I don't think the current training specifically mentions the Ask for Angela scheme, but the Ask for Angela scheme does specifically really relate to licensed premises in relation to that.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Newport, one more question.
Thank you, Chair. If Councillor Marriott would like to put that forward as a motion, what she's just said about adding the Ask for Angela or relevant thereabouts training to on page 113, then I'd be more than happy to second that.
For clarity, could we have that motion again, please, if you're happy to do that?
Okay, taking into account of what the officer has just explained to us, I propose that it's added on here that taxi drivers are made aware of the Ask for Angela scheme, so that there is some kind of work between us and the taxi trade, just so that they're aware, because they may be picking up from a licensed premises, for example, of somebody who's asked for that kind of assistance. So even if it's not included in the training, maybe I'm proposing that all our licensed taxi drivers are made aware of the scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Marriott. Is it acceptable, Paul?
Yeah, we can certainly write to all of our licensed taxi drivers, giving them details of the scheme and making them aware in it, and asking them to sort of promote it. Certainly during the festive period, I think it's probably a good time to to do that. So we can quite easily do that. This week, next week, we can get that information out.
That is a proposed motion. So in that case, can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Newport. Thank you. So to that amendment, we need to take a vote. So those in favour of that, please. I think is that. Those against, please. I'm voting for. And any abstentions? Unanimous. Thank you, members. I will now move the recommendation. Oh, God, it's on. I now move the recommendation set out on page 11 of the report. Recommendation 1 is to approve the reviewed statement of licensing policy as attached as Appendix A to the report to go out to consultation. R2, that's to, after consultation, any relevant responses are reported to the Licensing and Regulatory Committee for consideration, and the draft policy be recommended to Council for adoption. That is with the amendment put forward by Councillor Marriott. Members, can I see a vote in favour of that, please? Sorry, I need a seconder. Take your pick. Councillor Shaw. Thank you. Those in favour, please. Unanimous. Those against? Thank you. Doing well tonight. Item 6, Taxi Licensing Policy Review. The report begins on page 99. The Department for Transport have published the Taxi and Private Hire Vehicle Licensing Best Practice Guidance for Licensing Authorities in England, which sets out guidance that is primarily intended to assist licensing authorities in setting their local policy. This report brings together the Council's taxi licensing policies into one document and then brings forward proposed revisions to the existing taxi policy ready for public consultation. Members, do I have any questions on this item? Thank you, members. I can't see anybody indicating that they would like any questions. I will move to the recommendations set out on page 99 of the report. Members, are you happy for me to take these items en bloc? That's noted. Thank you. Right. Recommendation 1 to agree that Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Licence Policy V1.3, as in Appendix A to the report, be adopted as the Council's policy with effect from the 1st of December 2025. Recommendation 2 to approve the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Licensing Policy V1.4, set out at Appendix B to the report, go out for public consultation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilson. Members, may I see a vote in favour of the recommendations, please? It's unanimous. Thank you, members. Thank you, Councillor Wills. Item 7. This report sets out the process and methodology for setting of licence fees associated with licence applications under the remit of the Licensing Committee, and proposes the licence fees for consultation where necessary for the 2027 financial year. Members, do I have any questions on this item? Councillor Constable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking through the fees and charges, and it seems that the only charges that have gone up of any great consequence in that charges is the fees to our licensed taxi drivers. I've not been aware that they've had any chance to update their fares this year. I would like to propose that their taxi fees are kept at the same level for the forthcoming year due to the economic situation.
Thank you, Councillor Constable. Councillor Mrs. Lorraine Shaw. Thank you. Just bear with me one moment, please. I've had a seconder and a proposer. Members, can I see a...
Just for clarification, the Hackney carriage and private hire licence fees. There's no proposed increase to the vehicle fees for either of those within that. The same is for the private hire fees, operator fees. There's no proposed increase in relation to that. The only change in the actual physical fee in relation to the driver's fees relates to the fact that we have included into the total fee the DVLA check that they are charged on top anyway into the fee. So it's all rounded into one, because at the moment they pay a fee and they pay up to 3 lots of, is it £8, isn't it? 3 lots of £8. All we've done is rolled that either 3 lots of £8 or £8 and added it to the application fee. The only other thing we have done, just for simplicity for both ourselves and for the licensed trade, is that there was also a couple of pennies on the end of each of the licence fees for drivers. I'm not quite sure why it was like 59 pence or whatever. We've just rounded those up just to make the administration of the fees different. So if anything, fees may have changed by a few pennies, but it's no more than £1 in relation to that.
It was my understanding on reading it that the chargeback fee, I can't remember what you actually call it, but there was a fee in there for your costs was going up by 3-point-something%, and I understood that was the charges of going up. The cost recovery charge was going up. Have I misread that?
I think some of the other fees and charges that we have is going up by the 3.8%, which the council is applying to most fees and charges effectively for the cost of living, but that hasn't been applied to the taxi fees and charges.
Right.
So yeah, that's definitely not been applied to the taxi fees and charges.
Thank you, Councillor. Are you still asking for that amendment?
If we're being assured that the costs aren't going up, then I will withdraw that motion. But it was just my understanding that reading through it, that the costs were going up to the drivers, the licensed taxi trade.
So for absolute clarity, you are withdrawing that recommendation, amendment?
On the understanding that there are no extra costs.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Newport.
Thank you, Chair. So if Mr Adams could just confirm, it's my understanding that we don't make any profit from this anyway. They're just administration costs we cover. We don't make any money from licensing at all, do we? And we're not allowed to. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, the legislation doesn't allow us to make profit. If we do make profit, we have to roll it forward to next year. However, if we do make a deficit, we can carry that deficit forward and recover it in future years. But currently, we're not making, as far as I'm aware, any profit on any of the current fees and charges.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that confirmation.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Are there any other questions, members? Councillor Stanley. Councillor, your microphone, please.
Sorry. With the training, do we incur any costs to that at all, to all the taxi drivers with their training? Or is that all funded through the taxi service itself?
Paul?
So the training, like the safeguarding training, they pay that separately to the external provider. So we don't fund that, but we don't charge for that either. So it's a fee that they pay to the external provider.
Members, are there any further questions? I can't see anybody asking to have questions. I will therefore move that recommendation set out on page 3 of the report. And that recommendation is to agree the proposed fees and charges as set out in Appendix A for 2026-27 financial year for the relevant licensing functions. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Page, thank you. Members, can I see a show of hands for those in favour of this recommendation, please? That's unanimous. Well, thank you, members. That motion is carried. That concludes our business for this evening. Thank you all for your attendance. Thank you.